Hey folks, welcome to Storytime with Mike Reynolds from Billy Maine. I'm a writer for Billy Maine. I was a webmaster, but we have a much smarter woman that can take care of that for us. So she's been doing that for almost like forever. So I don't have to do webmastering anymore, which is a lot easier for me. And today's an awfully hot day, so I'm doing it best I can to get something out to you folks. There's still so much going on. A bunch of Supreme Court rulings came in today and over the week. It's the end of June, so that's when that happens. We're also talking about a Supreme Court case that happened 27 years ago and how the DOJ is now reinterpreting that. That's the Olmstead case that will be going on for, we've had a discussion about that already. We're going to have more than one, and you'll have to excuse me while I check the volume. That's okay, I think. But it's extremely hot out. It's going to be even worse this rest of this week. It's a holiday week. It's going to be brutal outside, 90s and 100s. And Maine just doesn't have the infrastructure to keep people as cool as they need to be. And it sucks. As a person who has significant physical disabilities that are exacerbated by the heat, I strongly suggest people check on anyone they know who's disabled in the States, in the New England States. This is actually, I think, a hot bubble, so it's literally like going to be shattering records, and it's going to be as hot as it was back in the UK last week, in Europe last week. So please check on your disabled friends. Drink a lot of water. That always helps. And make sure that you're taking care of your friends because they need to be taken care of. And that's what friends and communities do. You know, when stuff gets rough, you check on people. That's why you have a Facebook friends. That's why you have, Messenger and texting and calling and human contact, because just because someone says they're fine doesn't mean they're fine. They could not be fine at all. You don't know that. And a lot of people are going to be very wary to tell you that they're not fine. Sometimes I know in the past I have said that I've been able to deal with shit when I probably couldn't. And having someone help me out and get me through that, when I was too stubborn to take money or help or whatever, really made a difference. And I can't say that enough. And again, it only takes one person to do a small thing to find out somebody's not doing well or not answering the phone or whatever, especially when it's the over 90. It's in the 80s today. It's tolerable today. Tomorrow it's not going to be so tolerable. It's supposed to be 92 and 95 at night. We could be looking at an actual heat wave in Maine before the 4th, let alone the 4th. It would be nice to see some rain, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. So yeah, if you have friends who are disabled, please check on them. If you're disabled yourself, do what you can. Cold water or drink, stay hydrated. That can be difficult for a lot of people, especially if you have issues like incontinence, or you can't feed yourself, or you can't drink yourself, give yourself a drink, or you can't, deal with, you may need help getting water or something. And those are real um, issues for people with disabilities. And also, another tip you might want to do is just make some small meals now before it gets really hot, so you have things to eat and not have to waste so much heat, time in the heat, or energy or exertion in the heat. Small coolers are nice, but they can be a lot colder. Basically, it's taking some sort of cooler, usually a styrofoam cooler, putting some sort of exhaust in it, dropping a fan down, so putting ice in it, the fan drops ice, so you get cool air. The ice melts. Not the greatest thing. It's can be made for up to $15. Just Google how to make a swamp cooler. It'll be the first of the month, so that may be something you want to do. It's the 4th. Again, it's the 4th, which means a lot of places are going to be closed. A lot of places that usually are open that people stay in, like libraries and other places. Certain restaurants are going to be closed, so other places may be open. But yeah, it's going to be dangerous out there for the heat. It's going to be scary. And kind of things that you need in the beginning, in the early morning hours, or the late afternoon or evening. That's another tip. Otherwise, just try and cope. I mean, the problem with the heat is that, if you have a phone, it gets hotter faster. If you don't have AC, I mean, everything just gets worse. If you use medical supplies, it can become unhinged, cause problems, sweating's a problem. People have problems with cars overheat faster, wheelchairs use more battery power, and all those things. Okay, wheelchairs, I'm not so sure if they use more battery power. But I mean, you gotta keep them charged, you got that CMP, you can't, it's so terrifying to think about losing power and heat, and that's the problem, is that sometimes CMP, the grid gets overworked because everybody's trying to stay cool. It's bad when I drove by Central Maine Medical Center and I saw a portable ventilation system that was brought in. It was a huge tractor trailer. That was ventilation, AC cooling. They were using for backup cooling or something. So they're taking precautions, and that's good, but nobody wants them to go to a hospital because of heat. No matter who you are, and nobody should have to. In a perfect world, they live in a house and have AC and all the supports they need, but we're far from a perfect world. And, you need to figure out how to do that. I cannot stress enough, please check on your friends. This is going to be a really hot one, and it's going to be scary. I won't lie, I'm scared. This is the first time where I've been living alone in a long time, and I'll be fine. I've got AC and everything, but it's scary. I mean, it's hard to live alone. It's hard to, it's hard to live with anybody. It's, and with the rising oil and the lowering of oil, now the just crazy prices that are going on because of the war in Iran. The fluctuations have been crazy this past week. I was paying $3.50 at one point. I was paying closer to $4 at one point. um, and that's within 7 days. So I can't imagine how it's going to be for other people. I have a little bit of savings, but that's, I mean, everybody's feeling this. I mean, people aren't taking vacations. I mean, people aren't getting jobs that they used to. Maine is a tourist place, and there aren't a lot of people traveling this year. Large percentage of people that travel from Maine are from Canada. They just don't come because of all the rifts in the relationships with Maine and with the U.S. and Canada. That has nothing to do with Maine people. It has to do with federal government, and that's scary because it's hard to see people who rely on industry like tourism. I mean, people go to Bar Harbor and go into debt to wait tables to try and make enough money to have money to survive the holidays, the school year with. I know a lot of people used to do that but they do that all over the place. They come from New York, Connecticut. The housing was expensive at any time in Bar Harbor. I mean, let alone with all the housing insecurity issues that are going on. I mean, there's some serious issues with housing. I mean, it's $800 to rent a room in Lewiston. I mean, when I was here 30 years ago, I paid $235 a month for my efficiency apartment 28 years ago. Yeah, so you could find an apartment in the classified ads within 3 hours of call. Within 3 hours, you could be in an apartment. I mean, it's happening. I've seen it happening this year, but it's awfully hard. You need to know people, and even then, it's that was scary. So for anyone that's going through, I think anybody that's on disability right now is probably dealing with a lot more stress with their income than they want to, and it can only get worse. That's what you have to prepare for, is what happens next winter. And I want to put money in my savings, save for a new car. I'd like to go on vacation, but it's not going to happen for a while because I've got too much other stuff to do. And right now I'm not in a position where mentally and physically I want to travel and take a vacation. And that's just me personally. That's not indicative of anything. I'm just, dealing with grief. My roommate passed away about 5 months ago, and that's still a lot of issues to deal with. But yeah, I mean, people aren't traveling. People are staying home. The 4th of July brings a whole. It's cool to celebrate the 250th anniversary. I'm 52, so I do remember a little bit about having a red, blue pair of probably bell bottoms that my parents had for me when I was 2.5 years old. I have photos of that. I mean, but I think 1976 is much less partisan, much more like, we had the whole country was like focused on 20 years. The 250s is a lot more fragmented, but that's our culture in general. Additionally, it just doesn't seem like, wasn't just a DC thing, it was a parade, it was everything. And I mean, I know there's a lot of parades in Maine. I'm not sure if there's, where they are. I know Preston probably has a story on them, but right now with the heat, I wouldn't recommend a parade for anybody. In news, the Supreme Court upheld that birthright citizenship is still a thing and will not be taken away after 150 years of precedent. I believe it was applied for with, hold on, it just happened, so I'm going to check it out on my computer. Give me a second. So, it was a birthright citizenship. There was an executive order that President Trump signed, saying that related birthright citizenship, and the Supreme Court specifically shut down that executive order, which means that 150 years of precedent is still intact, which is good. That the Supreme Court also said that being transphobic is now legal, and that girls' teams can keep non-binary or transgender people off sports teams, which is sad because in Maine it's literally the number of trans women who are competing in high school sports and secondary sports is like literally a handful. You can count them on your hands. It was supposed to have a referendum question about that. It didn't make the ballot because of a number of inconsistencies with the Citizens Initiative signatures, so it was 500 votes short, which means that on the last day of Pride, we got really slammed with a Supreme Court decision, but at least we can take solace or some satisfaction that made the referendum to ban women from, or trans women from women's sports didn't pass and will not be on the ballot this November. Speaking of the November ballot, our electoral activity is now like headlines in the New York Times and the New York Times, the Portland Press Herald in Sierra, which I believe is a polling company, are all working together, and they released their polls, and Grant Partner is 2 points ahead of Susan Collins in the Senate race. In the governor's race, the poll found that Shanna Pingree, who is a pretty progressive Democrat who's awesome, Um, don't know her as well as I know so many other people that they have come in her. But she's good, and she's leading in polls. And it is kind of weird that a small state like Maine is getting so much spotlight on the election, but I think with everything being so completely polarized, and I think everything being so completely tight in terms of control of the Senate, control of the House, and with the Voting Rights Act and redistricting, changing the way races are being done in a bunch of different places. I think that it's interesting to have so many people focused on the main race, specifically college and partner. We have a viewer, so hi viewer, hope you're having a good day. If you can't watch us the entire thing, we're going to be going for about another 8, 10, maybe a little bit longer minutes. But if you can't watch us, Facebook does put this on about 30 days, and then we put this on YouTube, and then we link it to Facebook, and we have an archive of like about 3 years on YouTube. Actually, about 3 years, maybe a month or so. But because we cover from a little bit before the mass shooting in Lewiston that happened a mile from where I live, and my roommate and me literally was at a traffic intersection that the shooter drove through when we saw him drive by a car. Yeah, it was crazy. So it's nuts. And we started this again to be as a response to COVID, but there aren't that many storytelling, and I think writing is important, but I think storytelling and being able to capture a unique moment of like, hey, this happened today, and this is today's reaction to it, and this is what else is going on this week. It's a type of media that can't be duplicated easy, and it is important. I don't know if people have the time to put a half an hour in each week or whenever I do these, but they are important to do. I have a hard time with my body in terms of doing them and being able to say I can do them every certain day, because I have really horrible issues with my CI system and my pain issues and just life in general that I can't predict, from one day to the next. I can try as hard as I want to, and I do, but I'm unfortunately, luckily enough, I can't give much preface or I can't tell you when I'm going to be doing something for story time. I wish I could. We've tried to in the past, and life just happens, and my body just doesn't handle it. So that's very frustrating for me, and I know it must be frustrating if you're trying to watch all these. They're all on YouTube, and we're going to try and make them more accessible. I know YouTube has closed captioning, which helps my voice. It can be really difficult to understand me at times. I know that. And I'm not done with talking about Olmstead. The Olmstead law court case that was decided, I believe the verdict came down on June 22nd, 1999, and I remember exactly that day. It was also Justin Dark's birthday, but I don't know if, I'm not sure when Justin Dark passed away, but what Olmstead did was, it said that people with disabilities have the right to live in the community. There are numerous things that have happened as a result of that. One of the things I know of personally is my friend Nick Dupree, who was a man who was reliant on a ventilator to live and all the care that required that. He also had issues with breathing and going to the bathroom and stuff like that. And I think he probably was IV fed for a lot of stuff. But he was a wonderful man who did self-advocate for himself, and around his 21st birthday, he changed this state of Alabama rules. They were sent into Georgia, where he would be living full-time in a nursing home and not being able to be visited by his family because it was 2 states away. And he successfully got the chance to stay in Alabama, and then he ended up moving to New York and being with his longtime partner, and then ended up grieving her, and he died within a year of that. And his brother was the only person that had the same disability as he did, and his brother was able to stay at home because of the Olmstead law. His brother also passed away, unfortunately. This is Nick and Jamie Dupree. They were incredible. But yeah, I was thinking about that. The Olmstead, why Olmstead is so important. If it wasn't for Olmstead, Nick would never be able to live alone with his parents in Alabama. He would have never been able to go to New York, and he did have some, he was in a hospital for several months, almost a year, over a year, when he moved to New York because of bureaucracies and stuff like that. But he did live in the community as much as he could. I mean, there were times when he couldn't. I mean, there were also times that he was, sick and had to be in the hospital, like all of us. It's sad that he had, but again, that's why Olmstead itself is so important. If Olmstead probably hadn't been passed, he may not have had as good arguments to make about living in the community as he did as having a Supreme Court ruling. And that's why Olmstead is important to disabled Americans. And as we look towards July being, Disability Awareness Month and the 88th anniversary Disability Pride at Mill Park in Augusta on December 18th. In Maine, it's really important to remember that people just really need to fight for Olmstead. Maybe that's writing, maybe that's talking about it every time chance we get during a story time. Maybe that's collecting and urging members of nonprofits to release statements on them. Maybe that's looking on Wikipedia and make sure that all those statements are very easily accessible, because we know that people on Capitol Hill in DC use Wikipedia a lot. Journalists use Wikipedia a lot. If you can show them how important it is as a law, then that becomes much easier for us to use as a policy thing to help the policy. And that's what I think exactly this I'm trying to think of is how you make Olmstead relatable to somebody who has no idea how important it is. You tell them how easy what it's done. You tell them about institutions. You tell them about why institutions are bad. We'll put Plan-Man. I mean, all these institutions are all the best that people could do at the time, but there was horrible abuse and neglect. People were kept away from their communities and not allowed to be their true selves. And honestly, isn't that what we're all trying to be? Is being able to talk, to be ourselves, to be open, honest, and be ourselves. I mean, if we can't, we're celebrating Pride Month, so okay. I mean, I can't imagine going back in the closet, especially since I lost a partner. I've been queer for so long that I can't imagine being, brought back to that silence. And I can't imagine institutions being a place where people with disabilities would be happening in the future or even in the present. It can't happen, and it mustn't happen. And if I do nothing with Billy Maine but spread information about Olmstead and keeping people in the community, I mean, there's been issues about, students who not being able to use, mainstream classrooms because of marijuana use, medical marijuana use, I should say. Even, in the past, 15 years, it made actually ended up being a pretty easy argument. And Maine was the first state to allow medical cannabis in schools. Colorado did, but it was only a patch. There was no THC. It was a transdermal patch that had to be administered by somebody that wasn't there. It's highly more restrictive than Maine's law was. So, again, when you look at things like medical marijuana laws in the past 15 years, or 17 years, or actually it's been 27 years since Maine passed medical marijuana the same year as Olmstead. But I mean, yes, when the maturity of Maine's marijuana law became so much that cannabis refugees, especially children who had epilepsy started coming to Maine. They need to have the ability to go to school and have those things. So it was really important that, again, community-based systems to keep people in the community, which was the basis of Olmstead. It's basis of independence in the community, independent living, and it's Independence Day is Saturday, so have a great 4th of July, and be well, and I will hopefully talk to you sometime soon. Peace.